Oscar Pistorius was in matric when he broke his first world record. Just a few years before, he'd lost his mother to illness. The teenage Oscar, at the beginning of an athletics career that would defy all expectations, appeared shy and uncertain.
I think competition and, the pressure and the expectations are always good. So I'm looking forward to going out there and giving my best.
Just a year later, Pistorius would be awarded the Order of Ikhamanga from then-President Thabo Mbeki.
The Order of Ikhamanga in bronze awarded to Oscar Pistorius.
Oscar Pistorius had become a symbol of hope, someone who showed that anything was possible.
I kind of think that if you might have one or two physical disabilities or mental disabilities, but you've got so many other abilities, like millions of other abilities, that if you let those disabilities get you down, then you're more disabled than you are able, and I think that people, just if they got the right mindset, you can basically do anything. So.
Thank you very much.
It's a huge pleasure. Thank you.
Pistorius went on to break many more records and grabbed global attention with his fight to compete in able-bodied competitions. As the first amputee to compete in the Olympics, he made history. But after the 14th of February 2013, everything Oscar Pistorius had achieved would become meaningless. His name was no longer synonymous with athletic achievement, but with accusations that he had deliberately ended the life of a woman he claimed to love. 29-year-old model Reeva Steenkamp. It was a staggering fall from grace.
This side, please.
Confronted by massive media and public interest in Oscar Pistorius' murder trial, newly appointed National Director of Public Prosecutions, eNCA, made an unprecedented decision to not oppose a court application for the case to be broadcast. For the first time in South African legal history, an entire trial was televised.
I'm thrilled at what happened, and history will judge me as a person who came on board at NPA and made these crucial decisions. Well, you know that when you make decisions, there may be people who may not be happy with your decisions, but I want to believe that this has benefited not only the South African public, but also the people around the whole world.
And the world has watched, riveted.
You have seen how people have received this case. People talk about it in the buses, everywhere. They quote the prosecutor, they quote the defense.
The state sought to show that neighbours heard a woman screaming on the morning of the shooting, and that Pistorius must have known who he was firing at. The defence then called Pistorius' closest neighbours, who said they only heard Pistorius crying. Ballistics and forensics experts went into graphic detail about the mechanics of the 4 shots that killed Reeva Steenkamp.
It's like if you see in its position, the wound on the left hand, just between the 2 fingers, bullet perforated here, but the arm was now in contact with her, and she was a bit facing down. It comes in here. It also penetrated the head of the deceased.
These were the details of Steenkamp's last few moments of life that her loved ones had dreaded hearing.
You know, what you think about it, because you're like, That's why I didn't want to hear anything about the trial. I don't want to hear anything about what happened. I was just dealing with losing her, and I think that's what I prompted my mind to deal with. But then you can't help but, and you can't help but let your mind just go there and think about it.
Oscar Pistorius cried and retched in the dock as the details of Reeva Steenkamp's last moments were described in court. But the most pivotal and dramatic moments of the trial would come when he took to the witness box in his own defense. During cross-examination, prosecutor Gerry Nel confronted Pistorius with video footage of himself shooting a watermelon with a gun and ammunition he called a zombie stopper.
What we can see there is the effect the ammunition had on a watermelon. It exploded. Am I right?
That's correct, my lady.
You know that the same happened to Reeva's head. It exploded. Have a look.
The most really loaded moment of the trial came when prosecutor Gerry Nel instructed Pistorius to look at the picture of Reeva Steenkamp's head, bloodied and bruised, and as a way of sort of really taking account and reckoning with what he had done.
My lady, I've taken responsibility by me waiting and not wanting to live my life, but waiting for my time on this stand to tell my story for the respect of Reeva and for myself. I've taken responsibility, but I will not look at a picture where I'm tormented by what I saw and felt that night. As I picked Reeva up, my fingers touched her head. I remember. I don't have to look at a picture. I was there.
I think everyone that knew her still goes through these phases where, is this a dream? Do I need to pinch myself? Am I going to wake up from this? I'm going to get a call from Reeva. I'm going to text her. And then when you see that picture, when I initially saw that picture, it was like the most graphic awakening, if I could put it that way. It was someone shaking me out of a sleep and saying, no, this is how she died and this is how she passed away and she's never coming back.
Judge Thokozile Masipa will have to decide whether Pistorius' shooting of Steenkamp was a goal-directed murder, the intentional and unlawful killing of a person he thought was an intruder, or an act of negligence, or none of those things. Pistorius insists he had no reason to kill Steenkamp. The state says he killed her following an argument and used WhatsApp exchanges between the couple to argue that their relationship was troubled. But experts are not convinced.
Look, the WhatsApps were important from the state's point of view, because they were trying to show that there was a breakdown in the relationship and that there was tension and there was anger and there were problems, etc. But I think if one takes the judge's attitude, and I know the judge very well, if you take her attitude already, then she's saying, well, yes, in a relationship you can look at it either way. It's not really a bull point or a telling point.
But if you look at the serious WhatsApp messages that flowed from Reeva to Pistorius, I think they were critical. I think it displayed a serious level of fear. It showed that she was saying that he only cared about himself. He was selfish. And to the extent that she said she was scared of him. I think that says a lot.
There were only 3 or 4 damning messages out of thousands, and when a person sends a message and he's in a relationship where there are ups and downs, he certainly doesn't think that in a year's time it's going to be read out in open court and for the entire world to consider that. So I don't think that the state have proved this motive. I don't think that the WhatsApp messages really contributed towards their argument for premeditated murder.
Because in those WhatsApp messages we saw ourselves. Dude, if you had to go through my WhatsApp messages, I would look like I've already committed 10 murders.
South Africa and the world has seemingly been desperate for some explanation of what happened in Oscar Pistorius' bathroom on Valentine's Day. Initial media reports suggested that Steenkamp may have been texting former boyfriend Francois Hooghart on the morning of her death, while another report claimed that Pistorius' alleged use of pornography may have led to an argument before the shooting. Those claims all proved to be untrue.
I think most of that speculation was fueled by the media. I think the media was was grasping for an understanding of what happened. Why did this happen? How could it happen? It was almost unbelievable.
I think the reason why a lot of us really wanted some kind of motive is because it makes the story of the prosecution just a lot easier to make sense of. It makes it more intuitively appealing. Without a solid motive for Pistorius losing his temper, what we're left with seems like a senseless act of violence.
I think the day that I heard about Reeva's death is the day that I knew I'd never know what happened to Reeva, 100%. And I had made that up in my mind.
Oscar Pistorius says he believed he was protecting Reeva Steenkamp when he fired the shots that killed her. Key to that defense is his legal team's argument that he was both a superhuman athlete and a deeply vulnerable disabled man. The state has in turn tried to portray Pistorius as a violent narcissist who refused to take responsibility for his actions. It is now for Judge Masipa to decide which argument she believes and just how legally relevant Oscar Pistorius' character and emotional life is to this case.
How much can a trial reveal the true character of someone? Because remember, the only interest that the state has is proving intention to kill someone, whether it was Reeva or another person, and not having a defense in law for the killing.
I believe that he saw himself as an idol, as did most of the world, and he's fallen from grace. He's a killer. On his own version, he's a killer. A lot of people, we know the history of our country, have grown up in very traumatic and very bad circumstances, and can that legally give them the right to go out and kill people? To me, it's no. The answer is no.
It's always going to be the case that we've been presented with two very different versions of Pistorius. The prosecution was always going to paint the picture of an angry, narcissistic playboy. The defense would always harp on Pistorius' vulnerability, the vulnerability of disability, his anxiety, and so forth. Where the real Pistorius lies, I don't know. I feel that I know enough about Oscar Pistorius at this stage to last me for a lifetime. My concern is that the absent center of this case, in a way, remains Reeva Steenkamp.
The reason why I still choose to speak about Reeva is because Reeva wasn't just somebody's girlfriend that died. She was so much more than that.
Reeva Steenkamp was a qualified lawyer who was passionate about women's rights. Just days before she died, she had spoken out against the rape and murder of Anine Boyson. Judge Masipa still needs to decide on Pistorius' guilt, but no matter the verdict, Steenkamp has, through her death, changed the South African legal system, enabling a criminal trial to be broadcast live for the very first time.
In my opinion, it's tragically ironic that it's happened, and I know that I'd spoken to her about such matters that she felt so passionate about, and she's probably up there staring down at us thinking, you know, I've managed to make a difference.
Whatever the outcome of this emotional and complicated case, those who loved Reeva Steenkamp know she is not coming back. The beautiful model and lawyer is gone forever.
So ladies and gentlemen, maybe make just a little bit of noise for Oscar Pistorius, please.
Arguably, those who care about Oscar Pistorius know the very same thing. The Paralympic hero is never coming back.
Thanks very much.
Karen Morn, Johannesburg.